Okay, so over the past few weeks I've had a few comments about coffee grounds and stuff like that and where you can use them. Now, coffee grounds, well, you can get them from many sort of coffee shops and stuff like that, as I've explained before. And these ones have come from Starbucks. Now, my wife went into Starbucks last week and come away with, I think, 9 bags of this. Now, they do, not always, but sometimes they put a label on it so that it actually explains what you can use it for. But if I can just sort of quickly explain, because it doesn't sort of explain in quantity. Coffee grounds are useful for a number of things, as I've mentioned in the past. They're very rich in nitrogen. They've got some, if you look at the NPK, they're not so rich in potassium and phosphate, but there is some in there. I think it's 0.2. I think the NPK is 7.2.2, so it's predominantly nitrogen. So obviously 7 parts of it are nitrogen, 0.2 potassium, 0.2 potash. Potassium and potash, and basically, so they're good for anything that sort of grows leaves. So you know, you can put it on things like asparagus, all of your brassicas, things like lettuce, any salad or anything like that. It's ideal for. So they're really good. Now, it's an all-round good fertilizer anyway. You know, you can put it on other plants, but I wouldn't suggest you put too much of it, because what it will do, say for example, if you put it on potatoes, it will encourage the tops to grow, but you won't potentially get a lot of sort of root growth and stuff like that. So you need a more sort of rounded sort of fertilizer for them. But there's no reason why you can't put it on the ground. Nitrogen's useful for a few things. And one of the most important things to remember with nitrogen is it's worthwhile putting anything that's nitrogen rich into your compost. Now, things that are nitrogen rich, and grass cuttings are obviously nitrogen rich, so always put plenty of grass cuttings into your compost. But what you need to do is, grass cuttings can get a bit slimy if you're not careful, so what you need to do is mix it up with plenty of brown stuff. So put it in there and then mix it up with some straw or some leaves or some, you know, sort of stuff like that. Or you know, the best way to get your compost working properly is to mix it up. You don't want it to be too wet or sort of too dry. But you do want some, obviously, you know, you do want some moisture in there. But what you do want to do is to keep it aerated, and the best way to do that is to put plenty of sort of brown matter in there as well. So you want green and brown matter going in there, and sort of add sort of cardboard, paper and stuff like that. There's no reason why you can't do that as well, just to sort of mix it up. Coffee's really good for compost. Now, you can actually put up to 20% of your compost can be coffee, and obviously the nitrogen that's in the coffee will be used up by the microbes, the bacteria and stuff like that that are working inside your compost to compost down all the things. So by putting coffee into your compost, it will actually accelerate the composting effect of all the bacteria and stuff like that, because the bacteria will thrive that much more. So people always struggle with sort of quantities. Now, in here there's probably, I don't know, probably about 2 kilos in there. No, it is wet. So obviously when it's dry it will sort of weigh less. But if you can imagine, I'm just gonna. That's what the coffee looks like. You know, I'll put it into this bowl so you can see. Now, I've basically got about, in volume wise, I've probably got about 4 pints, half a gallon, 2 litres. That sort of measure. I don't know if you can see, but I've got a bowl, and that's basically 1 bag's worth. Now this I'd put about that much onto my asparagus, which I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to put some on the ground. I was going to weed it, but because the weather's bad, I've not bothered. I've not got out there today to do it. And I would put that much in your compost, probably every, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, and that will help the composting. Now, with the compost, you want to keep it nice and mixed up. So what I would suggest you do is, rather than putting loads in one go, put a bit in, and then put some more stuff on top of that, and then put some more in. So you sort of layer it, and you sort of building it up. But if you think of if you think of a composting bin, the black sort of bins, you could potentially put, I don't know, 4 buckets full of this in there with the rest of your compost, and all that will break down and make really good compost for you. So looking at volume wise, you can put, if you get some bags like this from your nearby Starbucks or whatever, you could basically put one of those bags in, I'd say, to your compost every 2 or 3 weeks, and just mix it up, obviously depending on how quickly you put in the compost in there as well. But I'd say in one of them black bins that you get, I would say you could put potentially, oh I don't know, 16 of these bags with absolutely no problem at all. You wouldn't be overdoing it with that. Basically 20% of the compost can be coffee. Now with regard to crops, I always put coffee on things where I've put wood chip, because wood chip typically doesn't break down that much, and wood chip is more sort of fungal type breakdown than sort of bacteria. But what I do find is a lot of the sort of the leaves and other bits and bobs in there do break down a lot better if you put nitrogen in there. So you do want bacteria, but with wood chip it is predominantly sort of fungal that sort of breaks it down. But for the rhubarb, every year I put, and I'll show you in a minute, I put about probably about 4 of these bags on there about this time of year. What that actually does is it helps to break down any residual straw and muck and stuff like that that's on the top. And what I'll be doing is putting about 4 of these bags on, and then what I'll do is overlay that with some more muck whilst the rhubarb's down, and I'll and then the nitrogen will be there for the bacteria to sort of work its way through. So so that's another good thing with coffee. There are 2 other things with coffee that you can think of. Worms like coffee, because the acidity of coffee is reasonably neutral. That's another good reason why you can put it on the ground and on the compost. It's not going to change the pH of the ground so much. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about the coffee ground. A cup of coffee, or if you've got a coffee percolator, the coffee that you make from it is most certainly, I think it's acidic. So what you want to do is put that on. If you haven't got any coffee left over, put that on plants that like irrigaceous soil, like acidic soil, things like roses, rhododendrons and stuff like that. That's where you want to put your coffee. Don't pour coffee onto your vegetable plot, because you want your vegetable plot to be reasonably neutral, if anything slightly acidic. I find a lot of people like to put for brassicas and stuff like that, they like the lime, the ground to be sort of alkaline, so they put lime down when they put the brassicas in. But my allotment is around 6.5, so it is slightly 6 to 6.5, so it is slightly acidic, and I find that those conditions work well for me. But for vegetables, really, you want it predominantly neutral, so you want it kind of pH 7. So what I'll do now is I'll show you putting some coffee on to the ground, so you can have an idea of what sort of quantities I use. The other thing you can use coffee for, sorry, just to come back, is worms like coffee. So coffee will attract worms into the ground, which is probably another good reason why stuff breaks down a lot better when you've got coffee in there, because it'll entice the worms in, and then they'll go through all of the compost for you. And anything, if you put a mulch on the ground, the worms will go through and sort of mulch, sort of start to move that about and break it up a bit quicker for you. But the other use that I use coffee for is slugs do not like coffee. So it is really good from that point of view, because it will attract the things that you want, which is the worms, but it will repel things like slugs that you obviously don't want. Now for slugs, what you want to do is sprinkle it on the surface of the ground, and then when the slugs go onto it, they don't basically like the coffee touching them, so they'll basically shy away from it. So if you've got, for example, your strawberry patch, it'll be ideal for you to sprinkle coffee on. Now with your strawberries, you don't want too much, because you don't want loads of leaves and no fruit. but what you can do is put a sprinkling of coffee on, and I mean basically just grab some in your hand like that, and then just sprinkle it on the ground, and then when the slugs go on in contact with that on the surface, they won't like that, and they'll turn around and go in the opposite direction. So you don't want to lace your put loads and loads of coffee on your strawberry plants, but what you can do is put a little sprinkling on the ground, and then what that will do is it'll stop the slugs going on there. Again, things like your lettuce and your salads and stuff like that, the coffee's ideal for them because it's full of nitrogen, and also it'll stop the slugs. So I don't know if you've ever grown some really nice lettuce and then you find slugs have got at it and stuff like that. This is the ideal way to do it. Plant your lettuce. As soon as you planted the lettuce, get plenty of coffee and put it round the bottom of the lettuce. That'll do two things. One, it'll supply the lettuce with loads of nitrogen, which is exactly what a lettuce wants to grow the leaves, and it'll also stop the slugs going anywhere near your lettuce and damaging the lettuce. So it's an organic, easy way of doing it, and of course these things are absolutely free. If you go to your Starbucks or anything like that, they will give you these for absolutely nothing, and they're more than happy for you to take them away. So what I'll do now is I'll show you sort of how much coffee I put on the ground this time of year. In the spring I'll again show you, because what I've explained coffee in the past, but I haven't really shown you me using it. So what I'll do is I'm going to put some on the rhubarb today, some in the compost, and some on the asparagus bed, so you can actually see sort of what I do. Okay, so here's the asparagus bed, and basically over this area here, so this is basically a metre or slightly more than a metre wide, and it's probably about 4.5 metres long. I'm going to be putting about that much in there, which is about about 4 pints, 2 litres of coffee grounds. And all I'm going to do, this is easy done, I normally sprinkle this on by hand, but all I'm going to do is just basically sprinkle this on the ground like that. And what this will actually do is it'll, this rain will sort of wash it into the ground. There's a few bits in there I'm just going to break up. So you can put that much on. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm just going to sprinkle that on. Perhaps I'll put it a little bit thicker than I normally do, but I'm not too worried about that. What I'll do is I'll actually put a little bit more on. I first intended, but that's not going to cause any problems at all. But with things like asparagus, they love nitrogen, and obviously because they're all leaves, all you need to do then is just sort of sprinkle it around with your hand into the with some wood chip on here. Now what I will be doing is putting some more wood chip in there in the next few weeks, just to top it all up. You can see the asparagus, so that's raspberry. You can see the asparagus tops here. So all I do is just sprinkle it in with my fingers, just run my fingers through like that, and then that'll sort of, it'll sort of move it around and sort of get it more equally spread over, but it'll also, sort of mix it up with the wood. So that's kind of how much I put on the asparagus bed. So what I'll do is probably I'll probably end up with probably less at the back. So I'll put about another, probably about 2 pints up there. So I'll just go and get some more, and I'll just do that, and then I'll show you the rhubarb. Okay, so there's the asparagus bed finished. As you can see, I've put a bit more up the back. So that's probably about a bag and 2/3 on there, and I could have quite easily put 2 bags on there, to be honest with you, which would have been about 8 pints. So as you can see, that's kind of the amount that I put on at this time of year. And all of that will wash into the ground. As you can see, the slugs are already working their way out, so that's all good. So I'll just show you the rhubarb now. Okay, so with the rhubarb, as you can see, you need to leave it till it's sort of died down, and you've exposed the bottom. Now, as you can see, what I've got in here is it's basically like a living compost heap, to be honest with you. So I've got some wood chips, some finely chipped up wood in there, which went on last year, so that's been there all year. There's straw in there, there's chicken muck, and if you work your way down, obviously you get down to the ground, and that's all. You can see it's all nice and loose. That's where the worms are going mad. So what I'm going to do now is, again, I've got the bags from Starbucks. Now this is easier done by hand, to be honest with you. What I find is I just sprinkle the coffee around like that.
what you need to do is sort of throw it about a bit. You do get some lumps. This is where it's been in the coffee percolator, so you might need to just break them lumps up a little bit. But what I like to do is kind of put about, I don't know if you can see me doing this, sort of handfuls on like that. So there's a reasonable amount there, and this rain will wash it all down into the ground. And obviously what you're doing is you're enticing the worms in there to do their work, but what you're also doing is you're feeding the ground with nitrogen, so the the rhubarb will most certainly enjoy that. And so I've put a reasonable sort of thickness there. I don't know if you can see that. It's all problems with dark stuff, it just looks dark too. But working the way up. So if that's on that area there, that's probably 1 metre by 2 metres. I've basically put a bag on there, which is about sort of 3 or 4 pints. As I say, it's easy to do this when you've got a camera in your hand. So I'm going to put, in total, I'm going to put 3 bags on here. The other thing I didn't say about coffee is it's much better fresh. So if you do get coffee, try and use it within a couple of months of getting it. Don't sort of store it away. Don't get loads and loads of it and then store it away and then not be able to use it. Now, if you've got any wood chip, like there's a pile over there. Can you see that pile of wood chip just here? If you've got any wood chip that's been delivered onto your plot, which you want to break down, rather than using it for paths, you want it to sort of break it down and use it as like a source of carbon for your plot. Then what you can do is put coffee on there as well, and what that will do is it'll increase the speed in which it breaks down. So what I'll do is just get round to the other piece of coffee, the other bag of coffee, and I'll just sprinkle on that remaining part. Okay, so there you go. I've put basically 4 bags of coffee onto the rhubarb patch now. I don't know if you can see it, but what I like to do, as soon as you've done it, just give it another quick, just like I did with the asparagus, just sort of rub it in a little bit, just so it goes into the. Oh God, we've got a flyaway bag here. Just so it's sort of mixed in with the surface a bit, so you can see the coffee's all down here, and I've sprinkled it all around. So there's been about, to give you an idea, I've put 4 bags on there, so that's kind of 16 pints of coffee grounds have gone on there. I only do this once a year at this time of year. I just do it the once, and what I'll do, as soon as I get some wood chip or whatever, I'll be putting probably about another 2 or 3 inches of wood chip on top of that, and that'll all break down, and obviously that's constantly feeding the rhubarb. And you've seen what my rhubarb's like. It's nice, and there's a piece there, all the remnants of a piece there. So it most certainly enjoys this, and I do this every year religiously about this time of year. Okay, so I hope you can see, but this is the compost bin that I've put the vegetables cuttings in. It's just under one of the fruit trees. This is an apple tree, and it's a nice quiet corner of the garden where that can sort of rot away in there. Now, what I'm going to do is put a whole bag of coffee in here now. So that's about sort of, I don't know, 3 or 4 pints. And what you want to do is sprinkle it all the way around. You can't really see this because you're looking at a dark thing in it. But what you want to do is make sure you get it all the way around, and just sprinkle it on the top like that. And now obviously what I'll be doing then is putting some vegetables on top of there, so that'll all break down quite nicely. So I'll put a whole bag on there, which is basically about 3 or 4 pints, and I'll probably do that probably as I fill the compost up. I'll probably put about sort of 8 of these bags in there. 8 or 9, you could possibly put even more than that. You could potentially put up to 16, 17 bags if you wish. But I tend to put about, about 8, 9, 10 bags. I don't really keep counting, honestly, but as I get it, I'll chuck a bag in there, and I've obviously got multiples of these. So, as you can imagine, I get through quite a few bags of coffee. But it's all good stuff for the garden. So, I hope this episode of Jim's Allotment Garden has been of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any questions or comments that you've got below, and I'll always get back to you. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.